Halloween special effects editing in Photoshop. So we're going to be using some of the basic Photoshop tools, but using them in a creative way related to Halloween and doing some special effects editing. I'm going to be demonstrating on this stock photograph, and you can work on pretty much any picture that you would like. And again, these techniques are useful in any kind of picture, but we're going to use them in a Halloween way. To begin, I'm going to duplicate my layer with a Ctrl-J so that I can see my before and after. And I'm going to start with the easiest and maybe the most fun way to do Halloween editing, which is Filter, Liquify. The Liquify filter allows you to push things around, make them bigger, make them tinier. Now, it probably won't all fit in the frame here for you to be able to see, but your tools are on the left side. There's a whole bunch of them. The ones that I think are the best are the Forward Warp, which allows you to push things, the Twirl, the Pucker, and the Bloat tool. I'm going to start with that one. So I'm going to bring the Bloat tool in here, and it's a brush, so I can change my brush size if I want. And when you click and hold, things are going to bloat or get fatter. Now if you move, I'm going to undo that. If you move while you're bloating, then they also move around a little bit. So I think that's a little too much. I'm going to go like that. On the other hand, the Pucker tool does the opposite. So if I click and hold on her other eye, this eye is going to pinch and get really tiny. And you'll also notice that her thumb got really wide. Maybe I want to pucker her mouth even more than it already is. The Twirl tool, you click and hold it and things twirl, but you can also click and move a little bit and it will twirl and add motion. The Forward Warp tool, I'm going to make my brush a little smaller here, and I'm going to use that on her fingertips to lengthen and distort them a little bit. So you can just stretch them out, or you can even stretch them out and curl them a little bit. Whatever you would like. If you mess up and you don't like how it looks, you can always click cancel and be done with this. Maybe I want to use the Bloat tool one more time with a nice big brush on her forehead. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. It's going to process for a little while. And then after it processes, it will show it to you in Photoshop. And since I did it on a separate layer, I can go back to my original and my edit whenever I want. So the next thing I'm going to do is use the Dodge and Burn tools, which are used for, Dodge is for lightening, Burn is for darkening, and then also within there is the Sponge tool, which is for saturating or making the colors more vibrant, and desaturating or taking the color out. So I'm going to start with, I think, the Dodge tool. And it's a brush, so again, I can make it bigger or smaller. I have to decide what I'm lightening. Are they shadows, midtones, or highlights? You can kind of play around with different ones. I think I'm going to go with midtones. I'm going to work with her skin. And I'm going to kind of pale her out like a zombie or a vampire. I'm going to take some of her skin tone and lighten it up like that. Then the Burn tool is just the opposite. It's going to darken things. So if we could see underneath her eyes, this is a good tool to make dark circles under the eyes. We don't have that though, so I'm just going to use it to make her look kind of like bruised and dirty. Like she's kind of painting around on some of her shadows that she's already got and darkening just those up. You could also use the Burn tool if you want to darken the background, because this background's kind of like happy and doesn't really fit with the Halloween theme, so I can use it to darken up the background as well. You can see I'm not really worrying too much about painting over the image of her, because if I hover around the edges too much, she's going to get like a white halo around her, and we don't want that. So as I'm burning the background, I'm covering up her a little bit so we don't get too much of that halo effect. Just a little more up here. Okay, and also in here. So the next thing I'm going to do is the Sponge tool. So I'm going to take a little bit of her skin color and lighten it up or make it desaturated, like she's pale. Desaturate. It's a brush again. So right now she has a lot of pink in her skin tone. I'm going to make her slightly desaturated. Now if you go too far, she's going to become a black and white person, which isn't necessarily what we're looking for. But I'm just taking a little of her skin tone out so she looks a little sickly. On the other hand, if you switch it to the saturate version of the sponge tool, that can be used to make things more vibrant. Like maybe I want to make her eyes really stand out, or her lips. All right, so again, liquify filter, the dodge and the burn tool, and the sponge tool. And then the next thing I'm going to show you is if you have teeth in a picture, could we make them into fangs? So this is another stock photograph, this time just of the teeth. And what I'm going to do is use a tool called the lasso tool. And we want specifically the polygonal lasso tool. You can see in its logo here, or its icon, it makes straight lines. So I'm going to go to one of the teeth and I'm going to make a triangle by clicking once, clicking again, and then clicking once down here. I'm going to do a double click, and that will close up my triangle. So again, it was click, click, double click. So now I have a triangular selection of a tooth, and specifically that, I think that's called the eye tooth, or the ones that would look like fangs if you were a vampire. I'm going to press Ctrl J to duplicate, and now I have a layer, and you can't really see it, but this layer has just a little triangle of tooth color on it. And I'm going to want to stretch or transform that layer, so I'm going to press Ctrl T on the keyboard. And so now you can see that I've got these little corners here so I can stretch and shrink it, and I just want to pull it down, make it more fang-like, maybe relocate it, maybe it needs to be wider, and then check it. Let's try another fang over here. So again, click, click, double click, and then Ctrl J. Oops. Now it's not letting me do a Ctrl J because I'm on the tooth layer from this tooth. So now I need to go to my background, Ctrl J. So now I have a layer with this tooth, Ctrl T to transform it, and let's see if I can stretch it out. Now this one's a little trickier because it's further behind. Maybe, actually I think if I just rotate it this way, I'm going to have to play around with it. Not the most believable vampire tooth, but it's not too bad. We probably want to go in and do some clone stamping to clean it up. And then again on this, you know, if she's supposed to be a vampire, then we probably need to do some dodging to and desaturating to lighten up her skin. She has too much skin tone. Oops, on the skin layer. Ooh, and I'm still on saturate. Let's try this on desaturate. She's a vampire, right? She's supposed to be kind of pale and desaturated. So that's the sponge tool, and then the dodge tool, if I shrink it down, will lighten her skin, make her look a little more pale. But then maybe I want to use the burn tool on her lips to darken those up. Or sorry, there we go, burn tool. Now this tool is actually used in photo editing to enhance makeup. If somebody's wearing makeup in a picture but the photo editor wants there to be more, sometimes they will use dodge and burn on like eye makeup. Obviously not in this extreme of a way. And same thing in a part of a picture that you want to be just plain darker or brighter, it can be used as well. Alright, so try some of those Halloween special effects. Remember the tools though, because we're going to be using them in our pictures in the future, and just have a little bit of fun photographing your friends and making them into monsters and zombies.